Hey, everybody, and welcome to Think, Engage, Thrive, where we bring you the most intriguing entrepreneurs out there. We like to focus on the unique, and we talk about some funny stories and what you can experience being an entrepreneur. Tonight, we have something a little bit different. Generally, we have a lot of people that are building whether it's building apps or software products or even physical products. Tonight we've got Noah Rosenfarb. He's a third generation CPA, but what he's built is yes, he's been an entrepreneur. Yes, he created a company, he sold it, he's an author, he's written 4 books. He'll tell you about his life, but really what he's focused on now is entrepreneurs trying to create predictable income for their life and create their ideal life. And what he's got is really a strategy to become rich beyond money. And I think I understand what he's talking about, but we'll hear it directly from him. So he's really done a lot of different things. Been an entrepreneur. He coaches entrepreneurs. He helps entrepreneurs. He does a lot of different things. It's a little bit different than what we normally get, which I think is going to be fun and refreshing. He's also very much a giver. He has a lot of resources that he gives out. He's got tax strategies that he gives out. He's got a guide for when you want to sell your company, when entrepreneurs want to sell your company. And believe it or not, that's absolutely a big deal because a lot of them don't know how to go about it. Once you build the company and you want to sell, how do you do that? He's got a tremendous amount of experience in the real estate side. So really a renaissance entrepreneur, I would say, but a really good resource. And we've got all the links to his various free resources and all of his websites and his bio all in the description on the show, so you can go and get that. And if you miss it there, we also post it on YouTube. So you can see it there. So we're going to bring him in. We're going to go through a bit about his past, his history, how he got to where he is. Because honestly, you don't really see a lot of CPAs moving in this direction, but he's really done it, and I think it's a unique story, and I think you're going to enjoy it, and I know I will. And so let's bring him in. And let's see what he has to say. Let's hear his story, and I think you're going to find it interesting. How you doing, Noah?
Excellent. Thank you for having me. And I appreciate you referring to me as a Renaissance entrepreneur. I haven't heard that one. That's a new one, but I'll take it.
Well, I think that's what came to mind when I read your bio and I read a lot of the things that you've done. And again, it's not the traditional path. I think of some of the folks we've had on here who are building, more of a traditional. I have a product or I have a SaaS product, and they go through these steps. You've sort of gone a different route, an interesting route. So yeah, I'd love to hear about your background, how you got to where you are, how you started, etc.
So I guess the story could go back as early as we want, but maybe I'll start with graduating college. I went to Rutgers University, the State University of New Jersey, where I met my college sweetheart and now wife of 23 years, Amanda. And
Congratulations on that.
thank you very much. And so when we graduated college, I went to join my dad at his accounting firm, which was a small 12-person accounting firm, and joined that, helped him scale that company and eventually sell it. Went from about 2.5 million in revenue to 15 million in revenue. He sold to a top 20 accounting firm, and I left a year before that sale to start what was then the first family office for affluent divorced women. So I'll stop there. Then I'll let you ask me some questions
Well,
to bring up.
that would be interesting. I've not heard of a family office for affluent divorced women, so you might
Yeah.
want to expand on that a little bit.
So when I was in the accounting industry, my expertise was in divorce accounting. So I helped over 1,000 families through the process of the dissolution of their marriage. And as a financial expert, my job was to testify in court and tell the judge how much money did this entrepreneur actually make. Because for those of you that are entrepreneurs, you probably can tell that your tax return doesn't always reflect exactly what you're making.
Right.
And then also figure out, well, how are you spending that money? Not all the parties know how they are actually spending their money and what they have, what their balance sheet looks like, how much their business is worth. And so I would testify to those things. And that was part of the reason our firm had such great success was we became the largest divorce accounting firm in New Jersey.
That's amazing. That's
And
amazing that
so
that's that big of an industry.
it was a massive industry. And the reason I left it was in part the more acrimonious, the more people fought, the more money we made. And I didn't think that was aligned with my own personal incentives of, I wanted to help people, help them resolve their disputes amicably as possible and come to a solution that could be a win-win for as many of the people around the table as we could find. And so I left that firm and decided to start what was then the first family office for affluent divorced women. And I went to the same lawyers that would hire me as a forensic accounting expert witness and said, listen, a lot of your clients, predominantly female stay at home moms who would get large settlements from their entrepreneurial or hedge fund manager husbands, they didn't know exactly what to do. They weren't in this position before. Trust me to help them. And so I built that business for a couple of years and eventually sold it to another registered investment advisory firm back in 2014, just about almost 10 years ago.
That's that's real. I'm sitting here thinking while you're telling me this. You know, when you think about accounting or you think about the service industry, it gets to be, I think, sort of single focused and I don't want to say boring, but it's sort of traditional, right? You think of accounting as this you need it's a necessary and doing tax returns, but you've sort of figured out how to make yourself different in that world, which is, I think, unique.
Well, it started by being an extroverted accountant, and you could always tell the extroverted accountants because they're looking at your shoes, not their own. You
Oh, is that right?
know? So yeah, most people think of accountants as an introverted profession, and so by being engaged with people, being empathetic, and having a high EQ, I found my niche. Especially in this divorce realm, which was a high emotional conflict situation, and it served me well, and built a very nice business again that I was able to sell and essentially retire from. But I spent a few years in retirement and couldn't find the meaning and purpose that I was looking for. And so I decided to re-engage and form 4 years ago Freedom Family Office. And happy to share a little bit about that journey with you as well.
Yeah, that would be great. But I do have one more question about the family office for the divorced women. So essentially, if I heard you correctly, they get settlements, and what you're trying to do is help them figure out what to do with the money so that the money lasts, right? So you flipped from um, testifying in court to finding the money or making sure that they got their due. Now you're saying, okay, did I hear that right?
Yeah, let me help you manage that money so it lasts for your lifetime. Let me help you with your tax return, which you've probably never been engaged in the preparation of that before. Let me help educate you about what insurance you might need as a single woman. What about your estate plan? What's your estate plan going to look like? And how do you interact with your children as they become adults? Because now, maybe dad has a certain financial status or financial wherewithal. Mom's status may be a little different, especially after a number of years of divorce.
Yeah,
How do you educate your children about money separate from their father? And so we did a lot of family programming, and working with these women to help them feel independent and secure and like they had all their ducks in a row. And it was a
yeah,
very rewarding part of my work.
yeah. It sounds like more than just a an investment advisory. It sounds almost as if it's investment advisory and a bit of counseling uh,
Yeah. And
to a certain extent. But yeah, so then you moved on and you retired for a few years, got a little bit bored, let's say, and weren't getting fulfilled. So then you moved
yeah,
on.
I think what was the most interesting part of this kind of 4 or 5 year time span, where I didn't have an operating business, so I was investing in businesses and investing in real estate, and so I've always been actively engaged in investing, and some of those investments come with some time that I would put into them, but I wasn't responsible for any of those businesses. And where I found much of my time going was into philanthropic pursuits, causes that I cared about, and it just wasn't checking the box for me. I didn't feel as productive. I didn't feel I was using my talents to their capabilities inside those nonprofit organizations. And I had friends asking me if I'd help them, and I kept saying no. And so finally, my wife and I were actually in Martha's Vineyard over the summer, kind of relaxing on a tour around the country, the Northeast, enjoying the beautiful weather, beautiful summer. And I said, the people I really want to help are entrepreneurs. They just don't need my charity. And so I created a for-profit business called Freedom Family Office.
And what does Freedom Family Office do?
So we're a team of accountants, lawyers, and financial planners that help entrepreneurs become rich beyond money. So when we meet these entrepreneurs, often they've had success that goes beyond even their wildest dreams. And certainly, when you look at them, and you can see by my tagline, I'm a financial advisor to the 0.5%. So our clients are already earning $1 million or more before we meet them. So money isn't always the core issue. What really becomes the focus for them is how do they live a life that's filled with meaning and purpose, where they're doing the things that they want with their life. And that's not as easy as some people might imagine when you have financial independence. Just having enough money doesn't cross you into a threshold of living a great life.
Yeah. Yeah. So how does that work? So let's say that I come to you and I say, okay, well, I've got money, but I'm not happy. Or
Yeah. So we start by doing some diagnostic tests. So usually we'll meet, if somebody's married, we're meeting with them and their spouse, and we walk them through some diagnostics around how they would rate their life in different areas, and then a visioning exercise around what is it that you really want to build. If you had a clean sheet of paper, maybe if your kids were out of the house, because a lot of times when entrepreneurs and their spouses are parenting children, the focus is taking the kids to school and soccer and afternoon activities. And so you may not be living your ultimate life that you really want. But if
sure.
you have the kids out of the house, what does your life look like? Where do you wake up? Where do you spend your time? And so if we could start to understand what it is that that entrepreneur is looking to build their life towards, then we know where they are now, where they want to be, and we'll help them design a path to get there.
That's interesting. It's an interesting approach. I would think that, well, most of the financial planner type people that I've met in my life just focus on, I'm going to make sure that you have enough money to last for, 25 years. They don't really care about me as the person. They don't say, well, what's your goal, other than, I guess the surface goals. Yes, I want to travel. Yes, I want to make sure that I've got enough money to put the kids through college and all that. But this seems to go a little bit deeper.
And I think it goes deeper, again, in part because of my experience as an advisor to divorced women. What most people don't recognize is the similarity. A lot of entrepreneurs approach us before they sell their company.
Right.
And the sale of their business is in many respects like a divorce. And people wouldn't think so, because most, certainly in American culture, we celebrate the entrepreneur that sells their company. It's considered one of the milestones and achievements that entrepreneurs would look to have. But 75% of them end up regretting that sale. And it's not because of the money. It's not because they should have done more to save on taxes, which is something we spend a lot of time on with our clients. But it really comes down to them finding meaning and purpose in their life. And most entrepreneurs get a lot of satisfaction from running their business, employing others, creating value for their customers and clients, building something of value for themselves and their family.
Yeah. I agree with that. I went through that myself, and I understand the feeling of, it's almost it's a loss. You're almost, I don't know how to explain it. I don't want to say depressed, but you have this regret afterwards that maybe you shouldn't, maybe it was too early, and you walk around. At least I did, for it took me about 2 months to really come to terms with what happened. So I can understand it.
Yeah, and it's not something that's easy to talk about. When you have an 8-figure bank account where a wire hit and you just sold your business for 10 million, 20 million, 50 million, 100 million. It's hard to tell people that you're feeling depressed, your relationship with your spouse changed. They don't really understand how that might be true. And so one of the ways that we've served this community is by making sure they know they're not alone, that they have someone to talk about with these challenges and these thoughts that keep them up at night, or the conflicts that are coming up between themselves and maybe friends they've had for a long time, where now the friends know they've sold a business, maybe the amount of money is public, maybe it's not, but creates all sorts of new experiences for that
Yeah.
entrepreneur, and they often don't know who to talk to about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting resource. I'm definitely going to pass that on to some people that I think could benefit from it, because and I know they have some things coming up, and I know their personality type, so I know that they're going to feel a little bit differently about selling. But what else? You're doing other things on top of that, right? You're doing real estate, or you've got some real estate funds. Or is that
Yeah.
tied together, or is that a separate
Um,
world?
Separate, but in many ways tied together. So I mentioned I was somewhat retired for a few years. I was investing my own money in real estate because I like it as an asset class. And many of the clients that I'd helped along the way wanted to invest in real estate along with my family. And so finally in 2018, I kind of opened that up, and friends of mine that had been wanting to invest in real estate with me, I allowed them to join me and invest with our family. So we're just tomorrow closing our 51st acquisition, a 144 unit apartment complex in Cincinnati, Ohio. That'll probably put our acquisitions right at about $1 billion. So we've done a lot of real estate investing over the years. I started at the turn of the century with my wife. We bought a two-family home, and we lived in half and rented half. And now we've got, I don't know what the last count is, but maybe 4,500 apartment units around the country, a 500,000 square feet of retail, and another 500,000 square feet of office.
So usually when people invest in real estate, they sort of stick to either, I buy shopping centers, or I do office buildings, or I do mixed use, or is there any one that you prefer? Because I have a friend who does real estate and he buys apartments and apartment buildings, but he always tells me it's such a pain in the neck because
Nothing's easy, right? Nothing worth doing is easy, and I tend to prefer apartment buildings, but I'm an opportunistic investor, so I'm really always evaluating risk versus return,
right.
and trying to examine where am I going to get the best return on my dollar. So our last 11 closed transactions, we averaged 27% returns, which is far and above what we would have expected. I've got a handful of deals that probably are not going to return anywhere near that much, that just as a result of the market changing in the last couple of years. But I believe in the long run that real estate will continue to be a good investment asset class. It'll continue to treat my money well, and I like the tax aspects of it in addition to the cash flow and appreciation.
Well, I would imagine that you have management companies that are managing the
Yeah.
apartment buildings, right? You're not.
Correct. Yeah, and actually, even more so, the industry has a few different layers to it. The layer that I am is really just a capital raiser. So I pass the hat amongst my friends. They put in 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, and then together we write a single check into a particular investment. And I don't have any operational responsibility. I'm just doing all the due diligence on the asset. My partner flies to see the asset, meet with the management team. And so we're working on behalf of our investors to ensure that, hey, we like this deal. My money's going into this deal. My partner's money's going into this deal. So if you want your money to go in, it's going to sit right next to ours.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, I have a friend who is in real estate, but he focuses strictly on uh, senior living housing and what do you call it? Short-term short-term rental storage unit.
Okay. Yeah.
Those
Self
two, those two pieces, and so he doesn't have to operate senior living. They just build the real estate, build the building, and then lease it to senior living. But he he likes those two things because he said that he's been doing it a long time. He says the least aggravation for him. He said
I
that,
think everyone loves their niche in real estate, and
I
there's so
know.
many of them. You know, the hotel operators love hotels, and the
Yeah, yeah,
storage guys love storage, and I'm kind of opportunistic. I think as long as my capital, I think, will be treated well, that's where I want to go.
yeah. It's amazing the real estate industry and how many segments there are to it, and how many people focus on what segments, and and really understanding cap rates and what you're doing. Right, there are a lot of people that go out there and just build the pad sites for fast food, or the pad sites for banks and things like that, and they have that down pat. And yeah, it's interesting. We had another gentleman on a couple of months ago who focuses on real estate funds. He has he builds the funds. They go out and they acquire 100%. So he'll go out and acquire 100% of a shopping center, and then they have an operating company, or an operating company that does the management of it, because he doesn't want to have anything to
Right.
do with understanding when I'm getting the rent check, or all those
Yeah.
sort of details about it. But yeah,
Well,
that's
if any of your viewers have an interest in learning how my family generates infinite returns investing in apartments, they could go to talkaboutre.com, like real estate, talkaboutre.com, and they'll be able to download a free ebook that just outlines our strategy for investing in multifamily properties, as well as gives them an outlook on how they might get started investing in real estate and why it could be attractive.
Yeah, we put that on in the description as well. All of those links, because I thought some of them were very informative. And then you were also talking about uh, predictable income, or which I guess, does that relate to real estate, or you're talking about? Um, I know somebody who buys. Um, Invests in song publishing.
Royalties.
Yeah, song publishing royalties. And
Yeah, so we've customized that predictable income to the entrepreneur. So some entrepreneurs actually earn the bulk of their predictable income from an operating business. Often, when they're no longer the active CEO, they're maybe the chairman of the board, and or even they're just an owner. They're not even operating, but they know they have a predictable cash flow stream that's going to come out of their company.
right,
Other entrepreneurs sell their business and now they're sitting on a pile of cash and have to figure out how, how is that going to generate enough income to pay all of my monthly bills.
right,
And so we come up with a plan for them based on what it is that they like to invest in, what risks are they comfortable taking. And most entrepreneurs are more comfortable taking risks in their investments than typical executives that are
yeah,
retired. So we customize the plan where they might be investing in privately held businesses or private debt transactions, and of course, private real estate, but also the publicly traded market. So our family office is a registered investment advisory firm. So we're a fiduciary money manager, and we have a chief investment officer who's been managing money for a couple decades and has performed quite well. So we invest in the public markets in addition to the private markets.
yeah. That's extremely interesting and valuable, right? To go from, well, I guess it's sort of a common path, right? To go from accounting to financial advisors, and things like that. But I guess the way that you do it, or your approach to doing it, is probably unique. I don't, at least I've never encountered anybody who's going to sort of counsel me on, where do you want to get to, and what you're doing, more over and above just the normal. Do you want to travel? Do you want to make sure that the kids have enough money to get through college and all that?
Right.
To be able to give an assessment of, my wife and I, and that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think our goal is not only to help people become rich beyond money, but one way to measure that is to think about whether you're living a better life after you've met us than before. And
Yeah,
I think we have the good fortune of having a lot of clients. I got a beautiful text today from a client that, God bless you, Noah. Thank you for coming into my life. And, that's not infrequent. And so I'm very appreciative that I'm able to do this work and have this impact on so many families.
yeah, that's great. What and you've written 4 books. What are the books focused on?
So I wrote my first book that I wrote was in 2013. I wrote a book called Exit Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise. And at the time, I had sold my uh, divorce focused practice. And I was thinking of counseling entrepreneurs who were selling their companies. And so I went and did a whole research project to figure out why 75% of them expressed this regret after their sale. It really came from a personal experience that I had with a client, not a divorce client, someone that I had counseled and helped them scale and sell their business, which was like a side thing that I did. I helped entrepreneurs that were traditional accounting clients of our firm grow, scale, and eventually sell their businesses.
Right.
And I thought I was doing the right job because I was focused on the money. That's what I thought an accountant was supposed to do. And I had this one client, and when I first met him, he wanted 15 million, and we got him there. And they said, "No, I want 25." We got him there. Then he wanted 40. We got him there. Then he wanted 50. We got him there. And so finally, he sells the business. And 6 months later, I'm in an office, a therapist's office with him, and he's talking about maybe getting divorced, and he's depressed. And I said, "What did I do? I did exactly what you told me to do. How did I miss this?" And so it kind of sent me on a bit of a journey to figure out, how did I not know how to serve this client in the way that they needed to be served, not just answering what they asked of me. And I interviewed investment bankers, and I interviewed lawyers, and I interviewed entrepreneurs that sold their company. And I kind of distilled all of that into this book, Exit Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise. But when I went out into the marketplace, I had moved to South Florida. I was new here. And again, I was somewhat retired, so I didn't have the drive and passion to go out and hit the ground running. And nobody was banging down my door. So things kind of sat on their own for a number of years. But I did write another book called 2020 Vision, which I wrote in 2015 with a co author, where I just shared stories of, I think it's about 15 different clients and ways that we serve them in thinking through their business and business succession and business exit. And then I wrote a book about real estate, how my family generates infinite returns investing in apartments. And then more recently, I wrote a book on how to become rich beyond money, which is available at richbeyondmoney.com, which just outlines our philosophy of how we help successful entrepreneurs through a model, through a process. We don't leave it to them. It's not something left to chance. We have a model that we work through with them to ensure that they're spending their time in the way that's most rewarding for them.
Hmm. Yeah. So how does that work? That
Yeah,
seems to
I
be
would say
more
it's a,
than, I guess that seems to be more than accounting or financial planning, right?
but it incorporates both, because again, we're working with people that have achieved a level of financial success that they should be able to achieve financial independence, which we define as having that predictable income that exceeds your desired lifestyle expenses. And so once you have that money coming in without any effort, so you have, a lot of our clients, they're spending 25,000 a month, 50,000 a month, 100,000 a month on their lifestyle. But if all of that is getting covered through passive activities, through investments of, prior savings that you've accumulated, well, now the focus is, what do you want to put on your calendar? Because you could say no to everything if you want to.
Sure.
And so, what do you say yes to? So, we help them build an opportunity filter to look at, who are the people that I want to spend time with? Who are the people I don't want to spend time with? What are the things I want to start doing? What are the things I want to stop doing? And so, through a combination of inquiry and then looking at their actual calendar and starting to discuss with them, well, where do you want to wake up? Do you want to be in your spouse's arms in the morning, or do you want to be on vacation? Do you want to be traveling and doing speaking engagements? Where is it that you want to be in the world physically? And
Yeah.
then what does that day look like? How much time are you exercising? How much time are you socializing? How much time are you spending with your kids or your family or your spouse? How much time are you spending working on something, being
Yeah.
productive, philanthropy? So we try and understand not just how do we get the money situation right, but how do we get the time situation right? And what we find is that for entrepreneurs that are no longer operating a business, what we need to find for them, what they need to find for themselves, and hopefully we could guide them, is how are they going to find meaning and purpose? And we find that it comes typically in three primary areas. The two that seem most obvious are family experience sharing. So, spending time with your family, enjoying your family, building family bonds. And another is through what we refer to as noble causes. So, whether they're nonprofit or for profit, what are the things you're doing for others that make you feel good? But together, those often aren't enough. And we find the third component to be critical, which is sharing your experiences. So we coach a lot of entrepreneurs to get their feet wet, either as a mentor, as a coach, as a speaker, as an author, somehow encapsulating all that they've had the great opportunity to learn and what's helped them achieve their success, and then packaging that and delivering that to the next generation as a way to pay it forward. And we find that that can often fill their bucket of meaning and purpose.
This discussion that we just had, or listening to you talk, reminds me of a guest we had actually on this show twice, a guy named Joe Rothley. You a dog lover by any chance? You have a dog?
Now,
You've heard of greenies? Have you ever seen greenies? They're chew things for dogs. They're
oh,
they're,
okay.
they're predominantly focused on cleaning off the plaque from a dog's teeth and fixing their breath. And Joe was a engineer, worked for the government, and in the '90s, he was in his 50s. In the '90s, he and his wife, he calls them, he says, we're couplepreneurs. Um, they developed Greenies, and he said he didn't take a salary for 3 years, and he built it. And Greenies it's still out there. They wound up selling to Mars in the mid 2000s for a tremendous amount of money, and he's gone on to build. He has a tool company called Spider, which is sold in Lowe's, and he's developed another product for dogs called Yummy Combs, which is again it's focused on dogs' teeth. But the point is that he's in his 80s and he's still going strong building businesses, because not because he needs the money or wants the money. It has nothing to do with money. It has to do with that feeling of, like you said, he still needs that feeling of building something and treating people correct and employing people. But he's got his family running the business on a day-to-day basis. And what he spends his time doing is he went on vacation to someplace in South America and realized that people with two pieces of metal and a or two pieces of metal and a cardboard turned it into a house, and he just couldn't live with himself. So he goes down there and he builds houses for people on his money. He doesn't raise anybody. He doesn't raise money from anybody else. And then he also does things like comes on my show. He's written books, and he does a lot of speaking. So almost exactly what you were talking about. He's still got, he's got his income that's keeping him
Right.
happy. He does his philanthropy, and then he also gives back to the community. So it's interesting that I can see that being extremely fulfilling.
And we refer to entrepreneurs as heroes inside of our business, and partly because they are the ones that are creating jobs, they're the ones that are innovating. But those people that are doing that, they often have a certain way about them that
Yeah.
doesn't let them sit on the beach and play golf for the rest of their life like some executives do.
I laugh because I, I I sold one business a few years ago, and my wife said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "I just want to sit in my backyard drinking coffee and staring out at the woods with my dog." And that lasted about 2.5 days before
Right.
I got too antsy. So you're 100% right. It doesn't work so well. You think you have this idea of what you want to do, but it doesn't always
Yeah.
work that way.
It's hard for those that are really entrepreneurs. It's hard to sit still.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, it's interesting how you've this path that you've taken, and these books. I haven't read them. I have to. I want to grab a couple of them and read them because they sound fascinating, and especially understanding the mind sort of an entrepreneur to help them sell their business, because that's it's you would think that an entrepreneur is going to know how to sell his business and how to value it, but they don't. They spend so much time building it that they have no concept of how to sell it and how to build it and what's going to happen afterwards. I don't think anybody thinks through that very well. So
Not very well, and most don't realize they need help until they come to that point. And that was kind of what prompted me again to get back engaged in this business. Is people were coming for help and recognizing now that they do need help. They don't just need an investment banker to help them sell. They don't just need an attorney to help them get the deal documents
yeah,
signed. They need someone to, make sure that they're on the right track.
yeah, yeah, I agree. So having talked to enough entrepreneurs, which sounds to me like you've spoken to hundreds of entrepreneurs, very successful, mildly successful. What do you think is a skill or I guess a personality trait or anything that most entrepreneurs possess?
Persistence.
Yeah,
Nothing in the world of business has ever come faster or easier for me than I expected. And I find that to be true for many entrepreneurs. And so, what we all have is this ability to just fight through because we have some feeling in our heart, in our gut, in our mind, in our community that we're going to be able to solve some problem
yeah,
and others are going to latch onto it. And oftentimes, this persistence leads us astray. As Mr. Wonderful likes to say, you got to take some ideas behind the barn and shoot them. But, I think for the most part, the entrepreneurs that succeed also had to have this level of persistence to fight through to create their success.
yeah, yeah. I would agree with that. A lot of people we ask that question a lot, and a lot of our guests have said the same type of thing, said it in different ways, but persistence. The other piece to that, I think, is a lack of or a high tolerance for fear, because I think that the the successful entrepreneurs they hit those obstacles, and some when they hit them early on just buckle and walk away and say no, it's not for me, and I'm going to just go back to getting a job. Whereas other ones, like you said, continue to just push through. Sometimes, sometimes to the point where they finally realize the business isn't going to work and need to be taken out behind the barn and shot. But a lot of times, I think those are one of the more successful ones is are the ones that possess that persistence and that high tolerance for fear. So, um, so in your business, which encompasses so many different aspects, what is the one thing that you'll never compromise in your business?
So we always put the client first.
Yeah,
And the thought there, especially, again, going back to my days as an advisor to divorced women, what I saw in the marketplace, and one of the things that motivated me to participate in advising these clients, was I saw them getting taken advantage of after their divorce by people that were in a position of trust.
yeah,
And, unfortunately, that trust was abused. And so, what I told myself then, and I continue to tell it to our team, is if we always do what's right for the client, in the end, that's the most profitable thing we could do. It's the most selfish thing we could do is to always put the client first.
yeah,
And I believe that to be true. And while I don't do it necessarily for the selfish reasons, I think it helps to identify it as the most selfish thing.
yeah, yeah. That's it. That's an excellent. It's an excellent way of looking at things. It's just like when you look at successful retailers or successful product companies that always focus on the customer, they never go wrong. Always focus on customer satisfaction. Amazon takes a big amount of criticism, but the reality is they take criticism from sellers or they take criticism from the industry, but not so much from the consumer, because the consumer uh, has such loyalty to Amazon. And they know because of the A to Z guarantee, and they know that Amazon's going to take care of them if they have any problems. So a lot of people, I do a lot of work with Amazon and with brands on Amazon, and I hear complaints constantly, but you never hear them from the customer. And 92%, 92.3% of the consumers in the United States have the app on their phone. So they're certainly not, leaving because of a lack of customer focus. So I'm just making that sort of similarity. Um, in a lot of businesses, in a lot of startups, a lot of entrepreneurial businesses throughout, even as you're going, they hit what I refer to a lot of times as a near death experience, something that happens and you think, oh my God, we're not going to make it through this. Um, have Has that ever happened to you in any of the
Yeah, of
businesses that
course.
you've had?
Too many times to count, you know? And I think that that's the reality of entrepreneurial life. If you are someone that's going to be a serial entrepreneur or renaissance entrepreneur, as you might call it, um, we're going to have failures and not everything is going to be a success. My first failure was I guess my first business failure was I had a pizzeria in college with my brother. I started a fraternity and sorority catering business that delivered 100,000 meals a semester. And uh, that business, my brother got sick. I had graduated college. I wasn't no longer in the restaurant business. And my brother unfortunately had to have his colon removed. And the business failed. You know, without somebody there to watch the store, a business like a restaurant is very hard to maintain. The money goes out the door, the product goes out the door, and the customers don't get satisfied in the same way. So that was one of my first business losses. Then in '99, I had an internet startup called Sweet Stay. I was the chief operating officer, and we sold a two-bedroom, two-bath condo anywhere in the world for $700 for a week. And we got that product, we got our inventory for free. So it was a really great business model. Free inventory at $700 retail sales price on something that, even at the time, to pay $200 or $300 a night for a two-bedroom, two-bath hotel room with a kitchen was pretty attractive. But when it came time I raised $1 million. When it came time to raise $2 million, it was the .com bust, and nobody was writing checks, and so that business had to go sit and get killed.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
yeah.
yeah. So
Predecessor to Airbnb, essentially.
exactly. So a great idea, a little too early for its time. But and unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, I've had other failures, business failures, but my successes have continued to outweigh the failures. And I talk about that with my wife a lot, who was a school teacher before she became a stay-at-home mom, and has a very different risk tolerance than I do. And she would like all of our money in cash, buried in our backyard in coffee cans. And so, we basically we just have this debate, as I'm a money manager by profession. I hope my wife would trust me to manage our money. And so we look at our balance sheet once a quarter, and I said, look at the track record, and I think I'm doing okay, even though it might be a little bit more risk than you'd like.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I talked about my first business. I built my first business when I was 27. It was in the food business. It was retail though. It was a specialty food store, and it was a disaster, an unmitigated disaster. It was a failure of leadership. I managed process horribly, and I still carry the lessons with me today. But it was a total disaster, and just. But again, I think I think you have to have. I think that you can't be afraid of failure when you're an entrepreneur, because you have to learn from it and you have to move on. It's either you failed and you're never going to do that again, or you failed and now the next one I know what I have to look out for. And to be honest, I was my own worst enemy. It had nothing to do with the fundamentals of the business. The fundamentals of the business were sound. It was 100% of failure in leadership, and which always made me feel good to a certain extent, because that's solvable, right? I think when the fundamentals of the business aren't there, that's not solvable, because you either have fundamentals or you don't, right? The business is either going to be able to make money or it's not. But when you're the problem, you can solve that. I think if you're strong enough or you're willing to look and reflect on yourself enough. So
One of the most common mistakes I see entrepreneurs make, especially those that never become our clients, is they're a good jockey on the wrong horse. And uh, unfortunately, there's a lot of businesses that no matter how hard you try, they're just not going to be great businesses.
yeah,
And so even a great entrepreneur with a poor business model is going to have a difficult time achieving an 8-figure net worth.
Yeah, no doubt. And that was sort of my point before with your transition from being in accounting to this family office for divorced women, high net worth women, because that was carving out a niche. It was a demand, and it's carving out this niche that nobody else is in. And what I see is, in a lot of cases, and we work with through the agency, we work with a lot of different brands trying to be a me too. It just never works if you can't carve out an individual spot for yourself. If you can't carve out a differentiating point, then you're just a me too. And then, like you said, you're just battling constantly because now you're just focused on price normally, right? We do a lot in consumer products, so price is always the problem. So
Yeah, well, I'll give you a price, speed, or quality. You get to pick two, right?
yeah, 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 it's true. Um, so you've been doing this quite a long time. Um, how do you stay motivated every day in your business? I mean, it's something that you really.
Yeah, every day is difficult. I would say staying motivated in general is easy because I get feedback, constant feedback. I get constant feedback through our profit and loss statement. I get constant feedback through our marketing efforts. I get constant feedback from the individual clients that we counsel. And so that is very motivating. I would say, in contrast, I'm a parent of two teenagers, and I don't have any scorecard. I have no idea. I think I'm doing the right job, but until these kids turn 30, 35, 40, I'm not going to know, did I do a good job or not? There's really no metrics to measure. And so, one of the things that I really enjoy about business is the ability to measure and to manage towards a measurement and have a goal and work towards achieving that goal, exceeding that goal. And for me, that's fun. So, I've found, for me, business is my fun. There's not, people like to ask me, like, what hobbies do you have? And, business is my hobby.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I raised five kids, and my last one just went to college. And the scorecard that my wife and I sort of look at is, did we do a good enough job? Did they get into a great school? Are they motivated? Do they have a direction? Right? And you're right. You're going to learn at 30, 35 if they fulfill that. But I think if you can give your kids sort of allow your kids the freedom to figure out what they're passionate about, and then make sure that they're getting, because all you can do is facilitate, right? You can't really do anything else with kids. You facilitate as to whether or not they're going to get on the right track. That's it. And so thankfully, all of our kids are in great schools and have done it themselves, and they all have jobs. They all have a focus. They all know what they want to be, and I think that that's sort of the best scorecard you can ask for. Now it's up to them when they get out whether or not they have the drive to fulfill it. But
I tell my kids, I knew I wanted to be rich. It was very important to me, but yeah, there's no expectations that they have to have the same desire. And they're
right,
certainly not going to be rich just because their parents were successful.
right. That's a good point. Listen, this sort of flew by. We're almost at the end. Um, any last minute parting words? Generally, any words of wisdom for aspiring young entrepreneurs or anybody who's thinking about becoming an entrepreneur?
Well, one of the resources I don't think I shared with you is I've compiled a list of what I call 26 actions for abundance. And this is a summary that's applicable to anyone. I've mentioned on the show many times that people that we counsel tend to have $1 million income or a $10 million or greater net worth. That's a very small group of people. But others like to ask me, no, how do I get there? And so I put together 26 actions for abundance. I believe you can find them on my website at freedomfamilyoffice.com under our philosophy and our values. You'll be able to download that. And those are just 26 ideas that have really helped shape my life, 26 actions, things that I've done that have led me to live what I believe is a unique and incredible life that I feel really fortunate and blessed to be able to enjoy. And so if you want to learn the actions I took, you could download those 26 and see if they work for you.
That's excellent. I'm going to take that and find the link to that, and I'm going to put it on one of the video shorts that we pop up after the show airs starting next week. So that's excellent. That's a great resource. I'm happy you shared that with us. I'm going to take a look at that, and I'll share that link with with our folks, and on social media. I think that's fantastic.
Terrific. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. We're out of time. It flew by. I appreciate you taking the time with us tonight. I appreciate you sharing. Again, a lot of great information, all those links that you shared with us, which is a lot of great free advice. So again, we put it in the description. We put it in on YouTube. We put it everywhere. So I hope people take advantage of that. And I'm going to add the one of the 26 steps that you have. And I think, very, very generous of you. So
Thank you. Yeah, as I mentioned, sharing my own experiences gives me a ton of joy, and part of why is the process of having to distill my thinking into a way that I could share it,
huh.
and that process, clarifies it for me. And for the most part, we talked a little bit about children. I've always told my kids I don't want them to be rich because I'm rich, but I'd love to share with them all the things that I know that I wish I had known when I was their age. And
Yeah.
so I try and encapsulate all that in writing. So not only do they get to hear it from me, but eventually they could read it from me, and potentially others, in my family and beyond could learn from what I've learned.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an excellent outlook and an excellent way of doing it. We've also made sure that our kids know that there's no they don't have to compete with what my wife or I are doing, or what we've achieved. They have to be happy on their own, and find whatever happiness they can. And I think that's the most important thing, is whether or not your kids can be happy with what they're doing. Because I think if you're happy and you're passionate about what you're doing, you'll find a way to be successful financially with it. That at least that's what I've seen, and that's all I really want for my kids, is just to be happy. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for having me, Phil, and hopefully our audience had some valuable takeaways. And if they want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, they could find me there and follow me on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, we put the LinkedIn in the description as well. And again, I really appreciate a lot of the free advice you've given and the free links that you've given. So hopefully people will take advantage of that, and we'll certainly do some promotions with it over the next week, to get more people to watch this episode after it airs. So thanks, Noah. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on tonight.
With pleasure, Phil.
Yeah. All right. I've got to do some closing stuff, so I'm going to pop you out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Terrific. Nice to meet you over the Zoom here, and we'll
Yeah.
stay in touch.
All right. Thank you. So again, it's that was a unique story, very interesting. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I think it's fantastic. I've got to go back and really read some of his books, because that's what fascinates me. When you start to analyze, what makes entrepreneurs tick. I did that book on entrepreneurship throughout history, and really looking at how entrepreneurs contributed to society and building society, going all the way back to ancient Egypt. So really appreciate the effort that Noah has put in. And again, we've got all the information in the description. Take advantage of some of the links. He's given you a tremendous amount of free information, which we love. So take advantage of it. I hope you enjoyed this one as much as we did. And, tune in next week. We've got some, I know we're coming up on the holidays, but we're still going to do the show, and we're still going to have it live. But we've got, and if you can't catch it live, catch it post production. But we still got some great people coming on over the next couple of weeks. A lot of focus on AI, a lot of focus on some unique business models, unique businesses. So, if we don't, if you don't catch us next week, have a good holiday, and we'll see you. We'll see you then. Right. Have a good night.